Say we're taking a journey to Mars and we're bringing two things. And what are those two things that you would bring? For example, if I'm going to take a trip to Mars, I'm going to bring a lot of granola bars because that's what I seem to fill up on. And maybe my iPad so I can finish watching Severance. Yeah. So I'll pass it on to Mary.
It's funny that you say granola bars because I'm traveling next week and I am connecting in Munich. And the Munich airport smells like sausage and there's nothing to eat there. And I just went and got some granola bars so I don't starve. So granola bars are definitely something that I'm taking. And I don't know how this would work on Mars, but my daughter just bought me a weighted blanket, and it's one of those things that I never knew I needed, but I can't live without it now.
And I imagine Mars is cold too, so it might
Yes,
be worth having.
so maybe the weighted blanket, yeah.
Yeah. Love a creative mind. All right. So Mary, you
So
pass it on to another person, then the next
I'm
person will
gonna
pass it
pass
on.
it on to Alyssa.
Okay, guys, I'm so sorry I joined late. Can you tell me what the question was? It sounds like we're bringing something fun to Mars.
Yes, two things.
Two. Oh gosh, I was prepared for one. Okay, so I would bring, this is horrible. I'd probably make sure I had my like Coke Zeros because what would I do? And then probably, I don't know, I'd have to say something I can do creative stuff with. Maybe like my like gel pens or some of my markers, because what would I do without anything creative in my life? I don't need to survive. I just need to have fun. All right, and then I will pass it on to, let's see, Heather.
I would definitely bring a notebook and I want to bring what is the name of that? It's like a mechanical pencil ruler, like a all-in-one type of pen or something like that. I would also bring that. I don't know why, but that's what I thought about.
Good choice.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you guys. Thank you, Jimmy, for that warm up. Let's dive into it. 606. All right. So thank you everyone for joining tonight. It's definitely a different vibe than we traditionally have events, which makes it so much more special. As you can see, there's only 11 of us here right now, which I love all our smaller events because I just get to see your faces and we get to know each other a little bit more and it's more engaging. And so that's what I'm really hoping to take out of tonight. Since we started Women's Aerospace Network, it's only been a little bit over a year, and we waited an entire year to start having events because I had this horrible fear of having boring webinars, the kind of webinars that you go to and they just kind of like drone on and you wish you never came. And that is the opposite of what I want to have tonight and ever have for WAN. So I definitely encourage you to be involved, engage, use the comments and use the comment section, be dropping all of your info, your LinkedIn, any comments that you have, any questions that we have for our guest speaker tonight. We would love to hear from you. So what are we doing here tonight? Here we are gathered because we have an awesome magazine launching. We're also going to be trying a different type of experimental format. So it'll be a fishbowl discussion where if you want, you can hop in and we can talk. We can have some awesome conversations. And the point of it is that I'll give some prompts for us to start out and help guide it a little bit, but it's really meant to just be engaging and go with the flow of conversation. So with that, let me share my screen. Y'all don't need to see my messy background. All right, can you see my screen? So the agenda. We're gonna be joined here by Mary, and I'll read her bio. She's going to take some time to talk and then answer a few questions that you all have. So feel free as she's talking to drop any questions that you have in the chat box, and we'll make sure to get those answered. Then we're going to hop into the fishbowl type discussion that I mentioned before. Let me tell you a little bit about Mary. Mary is a lifelong dreamer who is fascinated with the cosmos, was ignited by a second-grade field trip to the Griffith Observatory. She's also a lover of words and has been fortunate to transform that passion into an editorial career in journalism and publishing. Mary especially loves coaching writers and helping them find their voice. Throughout her career in publishing, Mary has edited dozens of books and written several young adult titles. She is also the author of An Enterprising Woman, an inspirational and aspirational guide for women entrepreneurs. When she's not working, Mary loves to travel, especially to the Greek islands, which I think she's going back to soon. So much that she's been studying modern Greek and is always looking for an opportunity to practice her language skills. She also enjoys getting away to California's high desert and can often be found at her home near Joshua Tree National Park, especially in the spring when the wildflowers bloom. Mary is also the proud mother of a young adult daughter. I'm so excited to have Mary talk tonight because Mary has been, she has been such a huge part of WAN. She is the editor-in-chief of our magazine that is launching very soon, and I couldn't be prouder of that publication. Mary has brought so much value and insight into Women's Aerospace Network, and I couldn't be more grateful for her. When I first put out the job listing, the volunteer job listing, I think I put in there, expected hours were like 4 to 6 hours per month. And that's what I genuinely thought at the time. Meanwhile, it became very apparent that could not be further from the truth. Mary puts in countless amounts of hours per week, might even be more than her full-time job. I don't know at this point, honestly, I've lost track, but she helps advise and shape the Women's Aerospace Network into what it is today. It has been a joy and an honor working with her, and I'm so excited for the magazine launch. I'm going to drop, as she's talking, I'm going to give her the stage in a second. As she's talking, I'm going to drop a link to the waitlist so you can join the waitlist for the magazine. And with all of that, I'm gonna hand it over to you, Mary.
Okay, I don't know what I can say after that introduction. I'm so proud to be a part of the Women's Aerospace Network. I don't even know why. I think it was just a kind of a serendipitous thing that I stumbled upon Holly's listing that day. I rarely, if ever, sign up for a volunteer position to become the editor-in-chief of a magazine, but something just caught my eye that day and I decided to do it. And I'm so proud that I did, because it's been a really fun experience to be part of this and to grow this magazine. And in my wildest dreams, I didn't expect that this was going to be what it's grown into. So when the magazine launches next week, you should definitely check it out. It's going to be something that I think you're not finding out there, especially in this current climate. It's something for women, not only to help us grow and develop our skills, but to show that there's a path for us to move forward, but there's also a way for us to bring up women behind us. And I think that's really important in this current climate, is to have a community. I got into my work in journalism right after college. I studied journalism in college, but then I graduated in a really bad economy. And so I ended up going into advertising because that's where I could get a job. And then ended up working for an alternative newspaper, which was a really fun time. And I remember going on an interview. I was actually for the LA Weekly. I went on the interview and they had just published a cover story with Salman Rushdie after he had published Satanic Verses, and Iran had put a fatwa on him. And I showed up for my interview and there were bodyguards and security swarming the newspaper because they'd received bomb threats. And I was like, I absolutely have to work here. This is the most amazing thing ever. And I did get the job. and worked there for a couple of years. And then a friend of a friend recommended me for a book publishing job. So that was how I entered publishing. And I haven't really looked back ever since. I love the permanence of publishing, and it's been really fun. I wrote The Enterprising Woman to celebrate women entrepreneurs, but please don't pick it up. It's grossly outdated now. At the time, it was really exciting. But when I wrote it, it was raw, we're women, like we can run businesses. Of course, we can run businesses. But back at the time, it was like really revolutionary. It's not anymore. So just don't even waste your time. But at the time, it was really exciting. I've written also a lot of young adult titles that kind of celebrate women and what we can do, where we've come from. That I think I'm a little more proud of today. Cool Women was a really fun book. Those books were actually picked up by Alloy Publishing, which ended up doing a lot like of zines, a lot of zines and things like that. So I felt like I was positioned to jump into WAN and work on the magazine with Holly when that came around. And we worked together to create something that's a little bit modern, a little bit inspirational, aspirational, something that extends the community that Holly built when she first started WAN. Oh, and these photos. I'm a big traveler, and I know WAN is all about space, but I think my attraction to space is the otherworldliness of it. So the photo to the left, I went to Jordan a few years ago in 2018. The photo to the left is of Jordan, the Wadi Rum Desert. And this is actually where they filmed, I can't even think of the name now, the Matt Damon film, this was the scene of Mars. And the Wadi Rum Desert is full of all these Bedouin camps where you can spend the night. But the Bedouins got the idea that they could actually take the camps and turn them into like little Martian settings after the movie. The Martian, of course, they could turn them into little Bedouin setting, little Martian settings. So they capitalized on that, which I thought was really clever. The photo to the right on the top is actually where I'm going next week. That's the Temple of Hephaestus in Athens. I love Athens. I don't know why. It's wonderfully old, yet completely modern, and I love it. And then the photo on the bottom is sitting at the top of the Temple of the Moon, looking at the Temple of the Sun at the pyramids just outside of Mexico City. And I don't know, I feel like our planet is also so full of otherworldly things. And so I just wanted to share that with you.
Love it, Mary. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for your trip coming up. I do want to ask you a couple questions. Wait, sorry, I totally just assumed that you were done.
I am done.
Okay. So you said that at one point you got into publishing and now you're working on the Women's Aerospace magazine. Did you ever see yourself coming into the aerospace sector if you haven't been in it before?
I didn't, although when I was in elementary school, there were a couple of kids whose dads worked at JPL, and we would get to go on field trips at JPL, and it was always very cool to go behind the scenes. You have to go through pretty heavy security. Obviously, as little kids, you don't get background checked or anything, but you have to go through like all these little tunnels, and they give you badges and the whole thing, and you get to walk on that very high security campus, and they have you like in these tight little pods as you go through and look at everything. And it was always so impressive. And I wasn't ever very good at math and science, so it never seemed like it was a possibility to me. But one of the things that I've learned through WAN is that you don't have to be a mathematician, you don't have to be a scientist to work in aerospace. Now, like I'm a writer and I'm working in aerospace, so you can apply any skill you have and work in the aerospace industry. I told my daughter, it's like, I work in aerospace now. And she was like, shut up, you do not. I'm like, I do. Yeah,
Heck yeah, absolutely. And that's such a beautiful message too, that WAN really stands for with our slogan Space for All. It's that you don't have to be an engineer or in STEM to be in aerospace. Aerospace takes everyone from so many disciplines, all the different passions like publishing and writing, graphic design, finance, project management. It takes all. So in that sense, why Origins? Why did you pick the theme Origins for this first issue?
I thought it was really important in selecting Origins, to look at not only where we came from, but to use that as a framework to to look at where we're going. And also, not everyone takes a linear path in their career. Many people go to school for one thing and then they switch many times. In fact, most people I know have switched several times. I went to college with a lot of people who were taught to choose a sensible career. And then in their mid-20s, they chose the career they wanted to, and then maybe they switched again. I went to school with people who became engineers, and then they became bakers, and then they taught spin cycling for a while. And then maybe they became consultants for other spin cyclists who opened their own studios. And then who knows, maybe they opened some Airbnbs and then they became consultants for Airbnbs. You can take your education and the knowledge you've acquired, and you can have the career that you want by taking the path that you want. And I think we are taught that you have to do solely what your initial education has trained you for. And so some of the people that we featured in our magazine have taken very different paths, and some have changed mid-career and done things very differently. And I thought that was important to show people, because we have in our community, we have a lot of people who are just starting out, but we have some people who are mid-career. And I think a lot of people mid-career think, I've made it this far. Maybe I should just give up on my dream. You don't have to give up on your dream. You can pursue your dream at any point in your life. And I think that's really important to know. And Space for All really does mean for all. And if you want to be a part of this community, you can do it at any time. And I think it's really important that message is expressed, but it's also important that we show that everyone's origin story is a little bit different.
Mary, sorry, I'm like almost tearing up over here. That was beautiful. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And as somebody I've had my career now, I went to school for what I thought was one of my only options at the time. And now I'm wondering, oh, should I have gone and done this or done that? And I think it's completely normal to do. And so just hearing you share about that made me feel a sense of relief, right? That you can always pivot, you can always change, and that the word origins, right? It may not necessarily mean where you came from. It could mean origins as a moment of pivoting or influx. And yeah, gosh, Mary, that was so beautiful. Every time that we have weekly tag ups, they take up so much of your time, Mary, and sometimes I'm just having the worst day, right? Something went wrong and I'm just working hard on WAN, and I talk with Mary and she reminds me, oh, this is why we're here. This is why we are volunteering. We're working so hard to share that message that it is space for all and that everyone can find their place in space.
It was interesting when we first went down the list of possible topics for the magazine. We went back to the dictionary and started looking up all the definitions. And one of the definitions for origin was to rise, which I hadn't really considered before. And that's what we're doing. It's like you go through life and some people just exist, but we want to rise. We want to elevate ourselves. So that's what we're hoping to do with this issue.
Absolutely. So it looks like we have a question here from Priya. Was there a moment in your career, Mary, where you realized you were wait, sorry, one second. Let me start this over. Was there a moment in Mary's career where she realized she was right where she meant to be? And what did it feel like?
Yes, there was. It was actually one of my very first publishing jobs, and I fell into it. And it was one of those jobs that I almost didn't take because I didn't feel like I was qualified for it. It was way over my skill level, but it had actually been offered to a colleague of mine, but he had taken another job. It was a publishing job for someone who was putting a book together. It was actually a privately funded job for this man who was insane. He was very wealthy. He was putting a book together, and he had hired all of his ex-girlfriends to put this book together. And they had done all the research. Actually, they'd done a pretty decent job, but they were stuck. And he was running out of money to do the project. He needed to get it done in 6 months. And they needed an editor to come in and just finish it. And so I came in, and I was young and I didn't know really what to do, but I knew that we had to get rid of all the girlfriends. So I came in and I fired all of his ex-girlfriends. And I figured he was either going to fire me or it was going to work out. And so he didn't fire me. And I hired everybody I knew, every writer in Los Angeles that was freelance, that didn't have a job. And we got it done in 6 months. And so I used that book to go to New York and get myself an agent and to get work. And he gave me a hefty bonus when it was over. And that's when I started traveling. I used that money to go on vacation. And when I came back, my agent had found me some work. And that was when my career took off. So
I love that. And I will attest to you knowing how to hire the right people. That's one of the things I'm learning from Mary is what do I look for and how do I do that? Because you have brought on a fantastic editorial team. It's unbelievable. I wouldn't have believed it if I had been sitting here 6 months ago.
yeah, but I was terrified. These women were all like 20, 25 years older than I was. And I'm like, oh, I have to let you go. I'm so sorry. And there were like 10 of them, pretty bad.
That's a lot of X's. Not gonna.
Oh, yeah,
What happened in one room? I don't know.
No, he was a player. He was definitely a player. But to his credit, he'd stayed in touch with all of them. And they were nice women, but yeah, they had to go because they weren't writers, right? They were just his girlfriends, and they had gone out and done all the interviews. They'd done the work, but they didn't know what they were doing. Yeah, it was a crazy experience, but we got the work done, and it was like a fly by the seat of your pants kind of experience. But because we did it and we had something to show for it, and when I went to New York and I would talk to editors there and I would tell them how we did this, they were like, you did what? How did you do that? And they were also impressed because New York publishing is very formalized and very traditional. And they were like, you worked in his house and you fired his girlfriends and you like, yeah, I didn't know that was unusual. I was like, what's the quickest way to get this done? And yeah, but it got me work and it got me respect, and it helped me get my way into the industry. And that's how I established myself. So that's how I knew that I had arrived and that I could do the work, and that I was not a fraud, that I was legitimate. Yeah.
It's gonna be hard to top that origin story. Not gonna lie. Cool. Thank you, Mary. We are going to pivot into the second portion of today's event. Thank you, Mary. Do we give a round of applause? Is that a thing online? Oh yeah, it's cool. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Let me unpin you and let me share my screen again. All right, y'all can see my screen again. Cool, thank you. Thanks, Natasha. All right, so a fishbowl discussion. We have never tried this before, so I've been really nervous for tonight. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sure many of us have. This is like just coming to these events, right, are new, especially for the industry. And this fishbowl discussion, I'm excited about it because it is an opportunity where I want to try out having multiple voices in the room. So if you've never been to a fishbowl discussion, they can be done in person or in the virtual environment. So the main thing is I will pin 3 or 4 people in the center, and that's what I refer to as the inner circle. And they're going to be the ones who are off mute, and they're going to be talking, having a discussion, and everybody else will be on mute in the sidelines. So the way that you enter and you exit the main place here, if you want, I'll start the event, the fishbowl discussion, off with a prompt, and whoever is in this center area, I'll take 4 volunteers. Whoever's in there, they are free to talk. Raise your hand if you want to go in the center, and put your hand down. Sorry, I'm raising my hand, but I'm like the emoji. Click the hand emoji to go in the center and put it down when you want to leave. And I'll put somebody else in at any point. If you want to join the center, and you are so encouraged to join, but you don't have to, of course. If you want to sit and listen, reflect, and just soak it all in, totally fine. If you want to join at any point, put your hand up and I'll remove somebody from the center here. Don't be scared. What I'm trying to say is don't be scared to put your hand up and join, even if there's already 4 people here. So once you're in the center, what you can do is you can share a quick story about yourself, maybe your origin story if you want. The whole key is if you do share a story about yourself, think of it like a movie trailer where we want like a quick 30-second flash of it and leave us wanting more. When you're in the center here, you can ask a question. So when somebody's in the center here and they're saying something cool and you're like, oh wow, I have this question about it, put your hand up and I'll put you in the center and you can ask your question there. Or you can just build on somebody else's story, what they're talking about in the center. And like I said before, when you're ready to not be in the spotlight anymore, just put your little virtual hand down. Do you have any questions? Okay, all right, let's try it. So I need 4 volunteers, please, to step into the center.
Inevitably, I think of curiosity, right? Just like an innate curiosity and desire to understand how things work. I think we tend to be like this a lot when we're children, and then we lose it somehow.
Yeah, I agree. It's especially when you're younger, you have that creative spark, you're more imaginative, you're more inquisitive, asking questions. And then as you get older, along the way in school or at work, people try to place certain boundaries or rules or make you think a certain way, and then you forget that creativity along the way. And for me, there are certain moments in my life where I was reminded of my love for space exploration or my love for space or rocket propulsion, things like that, that I had forgotten. And so I think I agree. It's when you're young, that creative spark is really important to have. And then when you're reminded as an adult, it's even better.
Yeah, to be honest, I started off at the age of 7. I was in the astronomy club. So for about 4 years, we've been going to science centers every single week. So my parents had to bring me there so I can do my little project. And then once I leave school, everything changes. I go to universities and I ended up doing a whole lot different things. I went from studying arts and then from arts to science. And now I'm back to studying the space again. So that's a whole lot of journey, which reminds me of what Maria has just shared with us. Yeah. Yes.
How do you stay curious?
How do I? Because
Yeah.
the thing about me is that we only live once, and I'm always constantly want to try different things. It's not that I don't want to stick to a job, but I'm just curious about how is it like learning this thing. I'm always curious about and always wondering about like how does these things work? Yeah, I think curiosity is the main word for discovering new things.
I think it's great. I'm glad you found your way back to studying space, especially
Yeah.
when it was one of the earliest things you were introduced to when you were 7, I think you mentioned, in the astronomy club. So yeah, I think curiosity is a big one. And then like for me, in order to stay curious, I gravitate towards the things I know interest me or make me feel alive or just a source of joy and wanting to understand more about it or be able to contribute to some type of project or scientific journey in life to where you can put your best foot forward and think, okay, how can I, my small self, contribute to this larger than life story? So that keeps me excited.
That's beautiful. I actually like to go into fields that I know nothing about or that might be deeply intimidating for most, but coming from the lens of theater. I
Wow.
approach everything almost as an actor, understanding that you're just a blank slate and you're going to learn
Yeah.
and absorb as much as possible. And without the pressure of, once I gain this knowledge, I have to produce X, but instead just to appreciate the many dimensions. Because there's, even if you're not an expert in quantum physics, there's so much you can extract from, and metaphors that come out of those fields that are fascinating.
Oh my gosh, I love that. You just described that so eloquently and beautifully. Especially when you're taking a creative mind, someone with a theater background, and you're applying it to the world of just aerospace, you're starting to think outside the box. And you need those type of minds, people from different backgrounds, different skill sets, just different way of thinking, and to help create this larger than life story that we're studying, which is the universe. And oh, that's really cool. I love the way you described that. That was beautiful.
Thank you, Priya.
Holly, is it okay if I jump into the fishbowl?
Yes, everyone say hello to Jennifer. I'm so glad Jennifer is here. She is a super successful former executive at Lockheed Martin and is partnering with Women's Aerospace Network. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm so excited to join. This is my first event with you guys. So going back to your original question, what do you ladies in the fishbowl think about role models? Like having the role models give you the example to follow your path into whatever field it is. Part of my origin story, I didn't have any female role models that were engineers or scientists or anything like that. I was the first generation in my family to go to college, and my father was an engineer though, so he was my first and biggest role model to go into engineering. And it was just happenstance that I won't get into my full origin story, but happenstance that I went into aerospace. So do any of you have stories about role models leading or lighting your path to go into aerospace?
I can answer that briefly. Yes and no. So my background, I did start off in engineering. I was also the first generation in my family to go to college. Both my parents, they work in the hotel industry, and so nobody in my family knew anything about STEM. And so I ended up studying chemical engineering and working at an oil refinery out of undergrad, and I absolutely did not enjoy it. And somewhere along the way, I had forgotten how much I'd loved aerospace and rockets. And so while I was doing that job, I was located in a really small town, like 3,000 people, and they had one movie theater. And the movie Hidden Figures had come out. And I don't know if you're familiar with the movie, but it's about three African American women and their contributions to NASA and just being amazing, all around brilliant, fantastic women. And so I didn't know the story, and there was nothing to do in this town. And so I went to the movie theater by myself. I sat down, and I think it was just me and one other person in the entire theater. And I watched the movie and I cried and was like, I got chills. I was fascinated. I was reminded of something that used to make me curious, and it just intrigued about learning. And so then I went back 4 more times that same week to just watch the movie by myself. And that's when I had that moment where I was inspired by these role models who were telling the story of actual women in history that made an amazing contribution. And long story short, that's when I had an identity crisis, wondering, what am I doing with my life? This is what I want to be doing. I need to switch paths. Oh my gosh, I'm like in my mid to late 20s. Am I able to go back to school? How do I get back on a different path? And yeah, just a whirlwind of things. But my role models, I've had real life role models now that are women, but the initial ones, they were on the big screen, and they reminded me of a passion that I once had and helped resurface it.
Yeah, I agree with Priya. For me, I actually don't have a role model because I grew up in Singapore, and it's not like being in aerospace, it's something not very big in my country, and especially for women. So it's totally out of the question or anything that I can look up to for me to go into this industry. So what I learn is to actually build and create the path for myself. Hopefully, by finding my way here, I could instead be a role model to the younger ones. That's the only motivation I have is to do my very best so that someone else can look up to me when I don't have anyone to look up to when I was younger. That's all.
I would like to join the fishbowl for a quick second. I would like to throw a wild card. Is that possible?
Please.
And so there is, of course, power, great power in seeing, in having representation and role models. And then to push back a little bit, I find that if I think of my instant, if you ask me today, who is my role model, I will bring up two fictitious characters for you. One is the Little Prince, and the other one is Cyrano de Bergerac. So they don't even exist, but they're full-fledged, full-dimensional characters. Yes, they might be of a male type. And even in my day-to-day life, I constantly listen to podcasts, as I think you probably do too. So I find those models, and they don't need to be physical or present in my life. I don't need to have direct contact with these humans. I even sometimes find a role model in my cat, because there's so much to learn from her and how she behaves and her patience and her I just wanted to throw this because I think sometimes we maybe get too much into the stereotype of what we imagine a role model to be, and maybe we need to free that framework. I'm stepping out of the fishbowl.
I think I'm still in it, so I need more people to join me.
Hey, Six, you're in. I'm super glad that Six joined us tonight. I had a long time ago, we met, and it was just like instant inspiration when him and I connected because they run an awesome podcast. Welcome, Six.
Hello, thank you. Are you guys able to hear me good? Hello? You guys able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm on my phone right now, and that's why my controls are a little bit weird, so I have to keep swiping left and swiping right to see everybody's stuff. So I appreciate the introduction, Holly. Here's my 30-second trailer. So I am one of 3 co-hosts for Cancer for Maintenance podcast. We're aviation maintenance centric, but part of our mantra is to bring not just the aircraft maintenance side of the house into the full view of everybody, but also everyone that's involved with it. And that entails including women and people who are segregated or have a hard time just being visible. So that's been our main purpose, is putting all that in full visibility for everyone to see and learn and just see how we all interact together. And it's not just about the plane, the pilots, and the glory, so to speak, that everyone sees on the news and on the daily basis. And with that said, that was our why to why we do the things we do. And I'm gonna put this out there for everyone in the fishbowl. What is your why? Why do you do the things you do? And what drives you to do it?
Great question. I don't know if we have anybody who will step into the circle right now to answer it. Do we have anyone? Natasha.
I don't want to be the only one in the fishbowl. We need more people
I
in the
don't mind
bowl.
stepping in.
Who's that? That's Jimmy's voice.
I stepped
Yes.
in. So the question was, why do we do what we do, or what motivates us to pursue our personal
Yes.
passion?
In general, what is your why?
Mine?
Every story has to have a why. So what is your why?
My why, so when I was growing up, my family would take me to India and we would sleep outside because it was really hot indoors. And so I grew up sleeping under the night sky, and the stars were always just a source of peace for me. And I would always wonder, where did they come from? Where are they going? And then even a metaphorical way, wondering, where have I been and where am I going to go? And so the older I got, I realized that everything that we do, that we're studying, innovating, creating, exploring, asking in all aspects of life, in a way, we're figuring out where we've been, where we are today, and where we're going to go. And from a scientific perspective, I think it's really cool when you study the universe and you're exploring space and just outside Earth's boundaries, you're slowly putting together a story of our past, present, and potential future. And so I think for me, what keeps me motivated is, what can I do to help put my best foot forward and contribute to that story, or write a small chapter or a sentence or just a little excerpt in there to contribute to why we exist as we do and the world that we live in, and just understanding it better. So I think my why is I want to contribute to that story of understanding the universe that we live in, because I think it's fun. It keeps us going, being curious, as we've talked about before, asking the constant why. And without that curiosity, there's no drive. So for me, it's just wanting to contribute to the story of our existence.
Love
Wouldn't
that. Thank you so
resonate.
much.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Oh, I guess I step in. My why, and I think just to give a like, quick spill or a spill about my background. So I work for the Women's Aerospace Network as a head of content. And I'm thinking back, what led me to this direction. Like growing up, I was a military brat. My dad was in the Air Force. My mom, she was pretty much a stay-at-home mom. But at the same time, like being a military family, we had the opportunity to grow up to visit and just visit places. So growing up in Denver, and then partly growing up in Pensacola, Florida, where you're near beaches and water and stuff, the only interaction that we really had was nature itself. And I think that kind of set the foundation for me. Right now, I'm a writer and I write about all sorts of things, but one of my areas of interest has always been STEM and just talking about science, preferably aerospace, because I believe it's the one entity that has no boundary. Like when we say things has no boundaries, that is the one area that has literally no boundaries. And we're still discovering what we think is a boundary, which is not a boundary. Those boundaries don't exist. And I prefer it to my personal life because we get so wrapped up in boundaries at times that we limit ourselves. And every time I see some new footage or piece of footage from Mars, or with the James Webb is discovering, or just the fascination behind the astronauts coming back to Earth after 9 months in orbit and just seeing the reaction of how it's affected them, because, their bodies experience no boundaries, is a constant reminder of the reason why I do what I do, is because the thought of having no boundaries propels you into a whole different kind of space that you never even knew existed. And yeah, that's what comes to mind for me.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Hey, Angela.
Hi, I'm driving, so it's a little bit hard for me to be super engaged, but somebody was talking about aircraft maintenance. I couldn't look at my phone to see who it was.
That was me, Six, the one who asked the why question.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm in aircraft maintenance. I'm in the Air Force Reserves, and my Air Force job is aircraft maintenance on F-16. And so when you were talking about that, I thought I'd chime in. But since I'm in the fishbowl for a quick second, I'm very curious. I've always been very curious about the world around me since I was a very little girl. And my world travels and my experiences working on all these different projects around the world really opened my eyes to the fact that I am genuinely still very curious, even as an adult. And I'm always looking to push myself and challenge myself and remove limitations off of what's possible in my life. And so joining the Air Force Reserves was kind of part of that process. Even though I did it super late in life, I was like the oldest person in my group. I was older than my drill sergeant. It was hilarious, but it was well worth it. And now it's brought me into this space and this community, and I'm super excited about that. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And thank you for your service. And F-16, those are some pretty cool planes. I myself, I've done all sorts of things. If I list off every single plane I worked on, probably be this long, boring thing. So I'm gonna save y'all the boringness on that one. But I appreciate you again for all you do for both your service, for the airplanes, and you're one of the small percentage of women who actually work on airplanes, which is another
Yes.
reason why, and that's another one of our why, is to highlight that. Say, yes, there are women in aerospace. Yes, there are women in aviation.
There aren't too many of us, but it's awesome.
Yeah, and love that. And hopefully someday soon, the percentage will be less on the single digits and more towards the 50-50 mix.
I sure hope so. That's my goal too. I always talk to people about what I do in the Air Force, and I love this job. And so it's wonderful that I can talk to young people about it and inspire the next generation of young women who might be interested in doing something like that.
Awesome. With that, I think that's a good place to pause. Angela, I'm so glad you joined in because that's the perfect close. What I wanted to bring up anyway is that later at the, let's see, April 10th, Angela is going to be having an event with WAN, and I'm so excited. It's going to be a personal branding and thought leadership for women in aerospace. So excited. So I dropped the link in the chat to go to our events page and subscribe to our events page and RSVP for that event. There will be more people than we had tonight, but I think despite the learning curve, the technical difficulties, which I thank all of you for saving me at many points tonight, I think some really awesome, powerful conversations came out of tonight. So thank you all for joining. I have my own thoughts of how tonight went, but after the event in about 1 minute, it's going to send an email to you and asks for your feedback. And it might look like just a generic email, but I read everything, every comment that you guys have, all of your emails. I would love to know how this event went in your eyes, what you like, what you didn't like, so that you were our experiment tonight. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I hope you have a great night.
Thank you both so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Holly.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mary.